Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the time to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Hey, welcome back to Never Been Promoted. Hi, it's Thomas Helfrich here, your host. We are live today with Angela Fowler of Real Life Access, where we're talking about how businesses should be making accessibility for people with disabilities a priority. It's good for business. It's good for people in the world. And this is her mission to do this as well. So she'll be on here just shortly. And before we do that, I'm going to do a shameless plug for myself. Why? Because I got the microphone and you do not. All right. Just go to youtube.com/@neverbeenpromoted. If you've never been here before, I try to be cheeky, but I also repeat this at every show is our mission. It's our mission to help entrepreneurs get better at entrepreneurship by cutting the tie to all the kind of crap holding you back. And if you're listening and not watching, and this is your first time, I wear a little blue cut tie. Why was it blue? Because I really like the color blue. But it's a metaphor for, there's lots of things kind of hold you back, a lot of things you do to yourself. And you got to learn how to kind of let them go so you can become the best versions of yourself and also become the best version of your entrepreneurial journey as well. Enough shameless plugs. It's time to meet Angela Fowler. Angela, how are you doing?
I am doing well. Happy Monday.
It is Monday. Is it Monday?
It is Monday.
You know, when you're an entrepreneur, right? You don't really realize sometimes it's a holiday or every day kind of, it's different when you don't go report to somebody and you have to show up or drive. Like outside of kids' schedules, right? Like every day can be the same day, really.
If it wasn't for football season, I don't think I'd know what day of the week it was.
Oh, that's good. There's a metric. Oh, what's going on today? Football. So it's Monday, Thursday, or Friday. Is it college?
Yeah, and Sunday, and Sunday the big day. Sunday's football. Except for what the Chiefs did to my Niners yesterday again.
It happens.
That was a horrible thing.
As somebody who was American football, but I just don't find the time to watch football. Never have. It's not something. I used to watch golf, but even then I don't even do, golf's great to sleep too. I learned that from my dad. But I just don't have the time to watch, listen, or learn from it. I appreciate those who do, who really get into it. I have to fake it. If I'm yelling at the TV, it's only because I'm trying to be like everyone else around me.
Just yell when everybody else is yelling. You'll be fine.
I just yell Roll Tide, no matter what the game is. Or dogs. I'm in Atlanta, so I'm supposed to say one of those two things, I think. I went to Indiana University, and so though I believe from a series of text messages from people who I went to college with who don't really know me, because they always send me all these college updates, knowing that they're like, "Are you watching the game?" I'm like, "Totally." I guess IU won in a football game, and Indiana was not a team that I ever saw win one home game when I was in college for 5 years. So anyway, now I didn't go to all the home games, but anyway, longer story. Angela, do you want to take 2 minutes to kind of just talk about you?
I would. So I am I'm a businesswoman, as you probably gathered. I live in Northern California, in the Sacramento area. I'm also a mom. I have one human child and now four fur children. Um, so yeah, and fun fact, I'm also totally blind, which is really the inspiration for my business, right? Accessibility, or things being built with disability in mind, is a passion of mine because it's something that affects me personally.
And when you're you say totally, are there? And I'm on I guess there's different levels of blind.
Well, there is. I mean, I say blind to stand for all because it's just easier. There are those that disagree with me, but I am totally blind, aka can't see a darn thing. It's easy to explain to people. Yeah, but there's different. If you met one blind person, you met one blind person. Some people have different levels of visual acuity, and sometimes visual acuity changes based on conditions, day or night, lighting. So don't take anything for granted.
Do amongst, let's say, the blind community, I have a curious, maybe a funny question. Are there those who you're like, they're only half blind, they're pretending? Do you like,
No,
like inside
I
jokes
mean,
like, oh, he can see out of his left eye, faker, something
people
like
have
that?
said that about me, which I find highly amusing.
What do they say about you?
That people have actually questioned, because I use a long white cane. I get around, do what I need to do. People have actually questioned whether I'm actually blind.
Oh wow.
It's like,
The
okay.
what I've learned, and I don't see this in every city, is that the concrete markings, and at least in Europe I saw, had certain grooves. So if someone who with vision impairments, the cane knows to stay on that. So it's like a feeling, like if it comes off this, it doesn't feel like this little bump, 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 bump. It's like a different feel. I don't know. I don't know if you've traveled to Europe or else, or maybe you can talk to me. Maybe a good way is that did I see that correctly? My assumption was, because I saw that on the ground, that's what it was for. But is that a thing?
It could be a thing. There are the truncated domes that delineate where traffic can go, and the pedestrian sidewalk. But we use a number of techniques. In keeping our alignment. Anything from, like you say, following a shoreline, to using the sun, to various sound cues. So it's basically a matter of just being mindful of your surroundings and knowing where you're at and where you need to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that simple. There is training that you need to have to be a competent cane traveler, but when you break it down, that's pretty much it.
When we were off camera, you said you were traveling recently with your son, and you said how you said this was funny. I heard the tonality is why I picked up on it. I think you said came home and his girlfriend had rearranged everything. So, you want to take a few moments on that? Just I'm getting so we can get to know you a little bit and your like life dynamics a little bit of how you got there. But how did you mean that?
And it's not about blindness. Everybody thinks it's about blindness. It's not about blindness. It's me. Okay, I am just not an organized person. I don't care how my house is laid out, as long as I have a chair and a coffee table on which to put my coffee and or my beer. I don't care. And once my house is set a certain way, that's how it stays. So she comes in and she wants to make the house, I don't know, functional. So
Well,
yeah.
so for her, not you.
She moved the dining table out so that people can actually sit around it, and added some seating to the. It is, and it's just, it's just one of those things. I mean, it takes a little bit of getting used to, not much, but you just gotta be mindful of what you're about to bark your shin on when you're stumbling out first thing in the morning, not paying attention to what it is you're doing.
Yeah, pre-coffee or pre-beer, you got to know where the table
Pre-coffee
is.
or pre-coffee or pre-beer, you got to be a little bit more
beer.
careful. Yeah,
You got
exactly.
to really trust the feels on that one. I would assume she intended good nature. She wasn't like, putting like, bear traps in the middle of the hallway.
She if she has, I haven't found him yet.
Yeah, didn't place him well. Clearly not.
Well, she's gonna wait on that for when I'm least expecting it. No.
Which maybe a fun kind of which city do you live in again? You said Sonoma.
It's Yuba City, California, which is north of Sacramento.
Nah, Sacramento. I'm sorry, I missed that. I was maybe thinking you're just wine country and it's kind of
works. Yeah, we're north of there.
Which California city is the worst for people with vision challenges?
Oh, we're gonna have to take a poll on that. I don't know.
Of the ones you've been to, which ones you're like, I do not like going to this city because of that?
Ooh,
or like to go. We can go positive route too.
That is a really good question. It depends on who you are. It really does. And it also depends on what part of the city, right? Because some areas of your city are more walkable than others. I'm concerned the less crowded it is, the better. But then again, more crowded places are sometimes more walkable. Because big cities tend to invest more in pedestrian things. But honestly, if you've got Uber, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can, and if you have the ability, if you can't afford Uber, the app isn't working. If you have the ability to get from point A to point B, you can get you can get where you need to go, no matter how friendly or unfriendly the place is.
Yeah, part of what you're doing, real life access, is to make it things. What's your focus on the more the priority for accessibility? It's you and I. It was websites. It was you talk about restaurants, but talk about where your kind of main focus, or maybe when you started it, like what was the thing that happened, or what was the kind of trigger to say, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm doing this. I'm going to make this business.
Well, for me, what got me into it is the digital aspect of it, right? Because I use a screen reader when I navigate any website. And some websites just aren't coded properly. So they don't work with a screen reader. Things that require a mouse, if you must use a mouse for something, if you can't use the keyboard, it's not screen reader accessible. Things that say an image isn't described, or a button or image link is not, there's no text, then I don't know what I'm clicking. I can just click it and see what happens.
Oh,
what's behind door number 2?
Alternative text that on the button, that's what that's used.
Yeah. So alternative text on an image, or a text label on a button. Not just an icon.
That's interesting, because just to kind of put that in perspective for just recently, I was going through our homepage, just trying to get the SEO score to go up, and it says, hey, you're missing images labeling and this, and I thought to myself, who reads this? Like, and then I was thinking, you said that, I'm like, well, that's a use case of why that matters, because some people listen to it. Some people go, hey, you're over an image that says this. It changes my perspective of what I should put on some of that stuff.
Yeah, but one thing you might not know is, say somebody has a really poor connection. Say they live in a very rural area, they don't have good internet. If that image can't download, they can actually hover over where the image should be, and they get the alt text.
That's a weeding out for us. If you have bad internet, I don't want to talk to you. That's it. That's how I define my friends. How bad's your internet? How good is it? If you have a dish on your, I'm just kidding. If you have a dish on your house for your internet, I'm not coming over.
If you have
all the dish, what if it rains?
But I mean, with
you probably, do you have a dish on your house? If you do, I'm going to feel bad.
If it doesn't knock your internet out, it has to affect it, right?
You're right. It does. You got Starlink. I mean, that's the other option too, I guess.
Yeah.
So real life access. What's the biggest use case or impact you think you've had? Like, do you have that one like experience you did where you're like, hey, we had this, we found this, and someone made the cry? Like, tell me about some like positive use cases that your company is going through.
So I was doing a TV interview just last week, and I was talking about just because she asked me, like, I run a TV studio. So what are the important things that TV studios can do to make things accessible? And I mentioned a few things. I mentioned, captioned on videos. I mentioned verbalizing. If you do a documentary, verbalizing the important information and giving enough information verbally so that a blind person can follow it. And I also mentioned e-signatures, because you go on TV, there's 80 million forms to fill out. And the owner was like, wow, I never thought about the e-signature component, but now that you mention it, that is really important. And she goes, I'm going to make the change. I'm going to make the change so that we adopt a fully accessible signature component. And it's just giving people information like that. I'm making a list, and I'll have it available to my newsletter subscribers within the next week or so. It's on my ever growing list of small or not too labor intensive yet tasks that I always forget to do. But it's the top 10 things that businesses can do easily. Doesn't cost much money. It's easy to do to make your business more accessible. Now, is this the be all end all of accessibility? No, far from it. If it was, I wouldn't be in business. But these are things that you can do to make things a lot easier, not only for customers with disabilities, but for everybody else. And one of those is that e-signature component.
Are you these things are typically okay, for example, you have to have a ramp up to a commercial building, or you have to have a accessible toilet, things like in restaurants. I'm thinking like commercial buildings, like ways doors can open, things like that, clearance. The stuff you're describing are things that aren't legally required right now, but are like integrated in our lives. Is that a fair way to describe that? That's where you're focusing?
Yeah. So here's the thing about compliance. Compliance is the minimal standard when it comes to accessibility. If you become accessible according to what real life access teaches, then in 99.9% of cases, compliance will take care of itself. And the only reason I have to say 99.9% of cases is that when it comes to the law, you can never say 100% because the law is insane.
Especially in California. Just throwing that out.
Oh, sweet Lord.
I took my shot at it.
Yeah, you're
I don't live there. We don't live there 11% tax on your income sounds great.
It's great.
We're not going to get on politics.
Yeah. And we, for some reason, we keep voting for it. But it's the people down south. It's the people in Southern California.
We can blame them.
They don't see things the way we do.
Just a sidebar. One thing that blew me away several years ago was the position of California to be so like, we love everyone, we should do things like, let's be progressive, right? And then this whole thing came up about legalizing marijuana, and it got voted down. And I'm like, how? Okay, I'm done. I was done with the state when that happened, because I'm like, how can that state, who needs money and taxable money more than probably any state in the union, not see the opportunity to collect billions in revenue from legalizing marijuana?
It's California.
That's why I was like, all right.
Do you really expect us to follow our own line of logic and common sense?
So,
there's common sense, and then there's California common sense. But the problem is that California doesn't always follow California common sense, so you don't know what the heck you're going to get.
Agreed. All right. Well, in that, do you believe? Are there? Do you focus mostly on U.S. stuff, or do you focus also on maybe other countries' accessibility?
Our focus is in the U.S. I'm not going to turn down a client from outside of the U.S., but the other countries have other laws. So I definitely have to. I would have to either consult or research just to make sure that their laws aren't so much stricter than ours that I'm steering them down a path of noncompliance. In the U.S., when I say be accessible according to my teaching and the law will take care of itself, I'm talking about the U.S.
Gotcha. The reason I ask is like when I think about digital products, and we look to the future, right? We look to the future of what is going to be required versus you should.
Yeah.
Like right now, well, what is the state of the union on that one, right? So what is this for? Focusing, let's say, websites, apps. What
So
what are required like by law, if anything, and what's
well,
best practice?
so luckily for all of us, most laws out there, either U.S. or international, the requirements, the rules that go along with those laws, right? Because there's the law and then there's the requirement based on how you follow the law. They are based on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, level AA. So that's going to be, that's if you follow those, then legally, in terms of your website, you're going to be okay. In terms of your mobile application, if you follow the principles of the guidelines, perceivable, operable, understandable, robust, then you're going to be okay. You're definitely heading in the right direction. But again, we teach not only accessibility, but the way your web page is laid out, how your workflows are laid out. Those things aren't covered in the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. But if you're selling a product and I have to go through 900 layers of website to buy your product, I'm probably not going to.
Right. No matter how bad you want it, like if you can't find a button that says "buy now," it's gonna be a guessing game.
I mean, if I have to, or if there's so many moving parts on your website, even though they do have all the accessible components, you have to be able to stop them. They have to be, that they have to not take up, massive amounts of your screen. Even if those components are compliant, if you've got too much stuff on your website, then somebody, maybe somebody with low vision that doesn't use a screen reader, somebody with a cognitive disability, somebody that just isn't very tech savvy, somebody that isn't very patient, is going to have a hard time and is probably going to abandon your site.
Oh, I even want to ask how our site for Never Been Promoted did.
I haven't looked at it yet. I'm gonna have to. Well, actually, I did because I did interact with it, and I didn't.
Now you got me thinking. Now I'm like, oh man.
I was interacting, and here's something weird. When I interact as a customer or the client or whatever, I'm just trying to get done what I want to get done. I'm not really looking for accessibility problems. I'm just going through the process.
Right.
And I don't remember having any difficulty.
With the type form we sent you, said it was very easy. Actually, that's what it was. So when you signed up for the podcast, you said, "Hey, that was pretty straightforward."
That was easy. Yeah, that was actually I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't sure because I wasn't really familiar with the type form, or if I was, you fill out a form, you don't know where it came from. So maybe I had filled out a bunch of type forms in the past and just didn't know it, but.
Well, I try to keep it where is impatient as you are. I'm probably, I mean, I haven't met many people as impatient as me. I keep it together. I'll just put it that way. But you know how it is. Inside, you're like, if this person doesn't take a left turn at this light, I am going to get out of this car. Anyway, my point is, that's mine. Let me breathe. It's usually Prius drivers. They have lots of bumper stickers. Usually a small dog is running all over the car.
Yeah.
Not make left or right turn. I will stop that now because I can go 15 minutes on that. Anyway.
And you wish the dog were driving because they'd probably do better than the human.
Correct. I think they're just going to spill their whole Sprouts or Whole Foods food in the background. Like, I mean, there's like, it's the bumper stickers that weigh them down. Anyway, the point being is I try to create things with the idea of simplicity. It doesn't always work, but I think but accessibility goes beyond simplicity. It has to do with taking the steps to, like you said, label images, make things, use technologies that are simple words, not slang, spelled correctly. What's kind of like the one thing that people mess up the most in the digital space?
That is a good question.
I could rephrase it if it's differently. What's the one thing that pisses you off you see the most when you're on the digital space?
Things that aren't keyboard accessible or that aren't labeled properly. You know what gets me though is when and some payment processors are better than others. WooCommerce is pretty good. Stripe, they've got a history. Believe they're getting better. I don't know, but yeah,
we use Stripe on the forum, so I think at least the Calendly.
Well, it worked. It whatever you used worked. I don't recall cursing your name during that process. So, but one thing that I do tell people is don't make it hard for people to give you money.
Right, that's a great rule.
Why are we in business?
We take these recordings and we use AI on them. We can actually be a good question for you here in a minute around AI. I have a few, but if the AI could catch anything from this thing, that's the highlight. Don't make it difficult to have people give you money. Like that's a lesson learned. This interview can be over now. We have everything we need to learn. You're making it difficult for people to give you money. Yep. Do you know who's like your best ideal client? Like I'm trying to think who hires you. Like in like what's the use case?
A small to medium-sized business. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of big accessibility companies going after the big companies, but they're not going after they're not targeting the smaller guys. They're not marketing to the smaller guys.
Well, how do you define that? Is that like, less than 100 million, less than 10 million? Like what's the size of company you're referring to on that?
A company. So if you have companies sponsoring your podcast, the podcast you listen to, they're probably growing. They're probably seeking customers. They're seeking to expand. Those are the companies I'm looking for. Because if you can afford, if you're out there aggressively marketing to people, you haven't gotten complacent yet.
Mm-hmm.
And you're small enough that you haven't gotten the big TV ads yet. So those are the companies that I'm targeting. Those are the companies that I think I'm more likely to be able to actually sit down and talk to the owner.
Right. Decision maker is still involved enough in something like this.
Yeah, the decision maker is still
that's actually
possible.
Who in a bigger company though, even a middle-sized company, who usually owns this? Like, is this an HR initiative, a marketing initiative? Is this a sales, or just exactly? Excuse me. Who would own that?
It's equal opportunity. So if I'm talking about hiring, then that's going to be an HR issue. If I'm talking about your website and advertising and things like that, that's going to be marketing. So low CEO level.
Well, it sounds like for your services in particular, if you're brought in to say, hey, we want to make sure that our site's most accessible for these products, and you come in through marketing, good for you, because you can say, hey, let's look at how you're hiring. Let's look at how you're doing your other stuff.
Absolutely.
You can land and expand in that group, because you can look at the whole package from a perspective of, I'm going to interact with your stuff and give you what you need to fix. I mean, you couldn't do that without being in the position you're in, it sounds like.
And we offer a personalized experience. If I'm talking to the director of marketing, then I'm also gonna tell them about some of the other services that we provide. The reason I don't attempt to market to the CEO themselves is that A, they're super busy, and B, everybody else tries to market directly to CEOs.
Mm-hmm.
So if I think I'm marketer deaf, they're 10 times marketer deaf,
Right.
as marketer deaf as I am.
Unless you referred in. So if you will help with one, that's the marketing angle I would take, is say is, who else do you know like you that I can help? Like that'd be the walk
Yeah.
in. That's the one marketing thing voice they listen to our peers. So that's for sure. Let's talk. Let me shift gears a little bit on you. For what you're doing, do you see AI though being a potential threat to your business or an enabler of your business?
Both.
Yeah, could you dive into that a little bit? How do you see the benefit, and how do you see it maybe replacing parts?
So AI can check for some accessibility problems. So, for example, it can check if and it can flag color contrast issues, which as a totally blind person, that's super helpful. Um, in many ways, it makes the process of doing an accessibility audit faster, but you can't depend solely on AI. And a lot of people fall into the trap of depending on solutions like there's accessibility plugins out there, or overlays that you can install on your website, and they're not all created equal.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are AI based solutions that promise compliance, but no AI based solution can deliver compliance. If you go with an accessibility plugin, if they say, look, we're gonna enhance the accessibility of your website. So for example, there's one I recommend that you can take an already accessible website and you can allow for user customization site. So for example, if they do better with a different color scheme than the one that you have, they can actually adjust it. That's the type of plugin that it helps. It enables accessibility. Now, there are plugins that say, install this plugin and your website will be accessible. No, those people are lying to you.
Those do not yet work, or
They can
you don't see it
fix,
working in the
yeah, they
future.
can fix some things, but if your user flow, if the way that customers interact with your site from point A to point B doesn't make any sense, if the alt text that you have doesn't give the user the information that they need, then AI is. I mean, AI is getting a little better about alt text, but there still needs to be human. You
Yeah.
know, you still need to watch it to make sure that it's not. And sometimes AI just makes up stuff.
No. Never. It definitely makes up fake news or articles. That never happens either. The I like doing AI, like taking AI and making it make up stuff, but have it not admit it did.
Yeah, you're messing it up for the rest of us. It's gonna go.
I'm out there training the algorithm incorrectly. If you can download unrestricted models, it's even worse.
Your chat GPT is probably pretty scary. You never know what that sucker is going to come out with.
No, you don't. But it's usually true. Actually, interesting enough, and I think it'd be interesting from. I think AI, from your perspective, though, could be an enabler if the tool was there to help you with the strategy.
Yeah.
Hey, we've identified these actual technical or things that are there, things that would be less nuanced, harder to see, speed related, like stuff like that. Then you have a place to focus to go execute, right? And that could do the hard work of not having to click everything, go through everything, but if something can say, here's the report, and you could be like, all right, this is how we would actually do this.
Yeah.
Manage it, do that. Then you have something. Well, how long have you been doing this for, by the way? I forgot to ask that earlier.
I started working directly in the accessibility space in 2001. And excuse me, 2021. My goodness, what decade are we in anyway? And that
2021.
job, the job that I had, really changed my attitude about accessibility, because we talked about impatience, and back in my younger days, when I ran into an inaccessible website or an inaccessible app, it would send my frustration into the stratosphere.
I bet.
And of course, the people that are most available to take out to frustrated customers are the people that have the least power in terms of actually solving the problem. So I get this job, and I was working on the Department of Veterans Affairs website. And I was working with people with varying degrees of knowledge about accessibility. But I realized one thing. I realized that most people want to do the right thing. The vast majority of people want to make things more accessible. They just don't know how. They don't know, they want to do the right thing. They just don't know what the right thing is. Now, let's take that logic a step further. Businesses that have a vague idea that there's this thing called the ADA that they need to follow, but that's that thing where you got to have wheelchair ramps, right?
Yeah.
They might not even know that there is a right thing to do. So instead of getting frustrated and taking our frustrations out on some poor hapless customer service person, let's educate businesses. Let's show them how screen readers work. And when you show somebody how a screen reader works, light bulbs go off. It's incredible.
Wait, how does it work? So maybe describe it. So, like during this show right now, I'll put you in full screen and I'll put your website address. Would it alert you I'm doing that, or is it done only through text?
Well, thank heavens no, because it would be yammering at us when we're trying to.
I know if you like a double secret, CIA agent thing in your ear listening to it.
But so what it is it is a piece of software that actually talks. I'm going to go up to the top here. It actually talks me through the website. So I'm going to slow this down.
Slower.
And I'm going to tab through the first couple links here on the StreamYard interface.
There's not much there.
Main region, mic and camera settings button.
Mic and camera settings.
Present button collapsed.
Present, so I could share my screen if I wanted to.
Leave studio link.
I could duck out on you.
Having issues button.
So it's telling me, so it said having issues, and it says not only button, it says it's a button, but it also says having issues, which implies that this is some sort of a tech support option. Or maybe it leads to help documentation. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't want to click it. I might leave the site, and
it might kick both of us out.
It might kick my pop-up out and be like, oh, well, then I guess the podcast is over.
So if I were to hit enter and space on that, it would actually open it.
Well, and that might be an interesting use case for AI, where you have more conversation with the AI around, hey, I want to click on this, but I could see that as I'm thinking of use cases where, it's kind of like the analogy I'm thinking is the story of the king who walked on leather and wanted all the roads leather, and the shoemaker goes, hey, I can do this for you for way cheaper, and he just gives him a pair of shoes, basically, right? And so the idea being, as long as you have the pair of shoes, you don't have to worry about everyone else having to do the things. If the technology you have on your side to enable it can be smart enough to say, hey, this isn't a compliant site or it has issues, but here's what's going on. What do you want to do? That I could see as being a good AI use case to enable the user to plow through a bunch of stuff that isn't compliant or not very friendly. Is there anything like that, or what's your opinion on that?
No, and here's, the road has to be accessible. I don't care how good your car is, the road has to be accessible. If the road has a bunch of potholes in it, if it's washed out halfway down, you're not going to be able to get through it.
No, that's true. I mean, you still got to have a drivable road.
Say something. Say I have a link that is a JavaScript link that is not labeled, and it's not keyboard accessible. Not only do I not know what to tell AI to click on, I probably don't even know that there is a link.
I got you. Well, that's what I mean. AI couldn't look at that. You don't think you go, hey, it looks like this is a link.
It's not that smart. I mean, what's it going to look at? I mean, I suppose it could look at the JavaScript code, but then what's it going to tell me the link is?
Do you ever like go to Google or Siri and go, like, you know, and just yell at it? What are you, blind? Like, you ever like, how do you not know this?
I've called it just about everything.
Yes.
It used to clap back at me. It used to be fast, to be honest.
I think they've toned it down. I think
They
did,
and
I think at some point it takes over and be like, that human was rude.
Somebody with no sense of humor took over Siri.
Right.
But yeah, one time I can't remember what the situation was, but it didn't give me the information I needed or something. And I goes, "What'd you do? Flunk kindergarten?" And it said, "We're not talking about me. We're talking about you."
Nice comeback. I like that.
Yeah.
Like,
All
we
right,
have
you
access
got
to your
me.
records.
Yeah, okay, I've just been burned by a computer.
Right. It'd be funny. It's like, do you want some cream for that burn?
Want some aloe for that?
Or it'd be like, would you like to order some cream from that burn from Amazon? It's on sale. Like, it starts messing with you. All right. I'm conscious of time here, just for our time together. This is shameless plug time. So anyone listening, don't drop off. Have a listen here. You might know somebody, or you might be one of these. Who should get a hold of you, and how do you want them to do that?
If you're interested, if you're a business leader, or if you have influence in a business, so say if you have the ear of management, if you want to know more about accessibility, or everybody should want to know more about accessibility. Did you know that the collective buying power of people with disabilities is over $2 trillion?
I read that in your site, and I was like, I had no idea
I couldn't believe it either. And
a huge market.
And over 95% of websites have accessibility issues. And some of them more serious than others. But I mean, if you're a small business or a medium-sized business, you could very easily be leaving money on the table and not even realize it. And here's the thing. People with disabilities talk. We're like a nationwide small town, right? So if you're accessible, we're going to tell our friends, "Oh, hey, you go to this business. They're perfectly accessible." And if you're accessible, not only are we more likely to buy from you, our family, our friends, our coworkers, because we influence them, right? And if you're accessible, you're also going to be more user friendly. So it's not just people with disabilities. You're going to be more accessible to, people without disabilities. I'll give you an example of this, sort of a counter example. I was ordering a pizza one time. This was a few years ago. And I needed to update my debit card information. It had expired, or I got a new one, whatever. I needed to update my debit card. So I go to the screen to update the debit card, and the expiration date selector was some cross between an edit box, a date picker, and a rat's nest. I honestly don't know what they were smoking when they created that thing. So I just gave it to my son. I said, "Jefferson, can you do this? This is not accessible." And he fought with it for a few minutes, and he goes, "This isn't even accessible to sighted people." And I asked him later, and let me just say, my son is a gamer. If I can't figure it out technology-wise, he can. This kid was born. He didn't come with an instruction book, but he did come with an iPad, right? So he's good with technology. And I asked him these things that I ask you for help with because they're inaccessible. What percentage of those things do you also have trouble with? And he said 50 to 60%.
Wow.
Now, if he's saying 50 to 60%,
right.
What of somebody that doesn't have his tech savvy?
Well, I mean, you could you could just take my parents who like watching them use a phone. It's just like, I might as well just get popcorn and watch that. I mean, that's just like, wow.
My mom is
Technology challenge. That's
she's
the
the
word we
same
use.
way. Yes, and it's and this is why user experience is so important, right?
Yeah.
Because as the baby boomers, those that haven't adopted this technology are being dragged into it by their kids and grandkids. And if you don't have a good, clean user experience, you're going to lose them.
Well, exactly. And I think just like I said, like, so I want to make sure people know. So you go to Real Life Access, so REALLIFE access.com. I'm assume it is very much so easy and accessible, be ironic, and yet very typical of an entrepreneur to make sure that they're, the tailor's kids are naked. If your site wasn't accessible, I think that would be funny. It would be ironically funny.
If
Tragic, right?
it's not accessible, I hope I hear about it pretty soon so I can fix it.
Your competition's just not telling you right now.
Like,
They're like,
they're not going to tell me.
they're not
They're
saying a word, not because they don't want to. There are disabilities, they can't talk, so that's why they don't say anything. But no, didn't work. The idea being is, I think it's a beautiful site, by the way. It's really well done. Great. I love the colors on the branding of it. So but I want to thank you, Angela, for coming on, telling your story and being here today. And I love that I love businesses that they're rooted in good. There's a real need. It's a huge market. It's just about, getting you more brand awareness and more people to work with you. You're very much so a fun person to talk with too. And I can hear you're holding back on your sarcasm, but I bet after a couple beers,
I try to keep the sarcasm somewhat at bay when I'm doing podcast interviews, but I do have my own podcast as part of the Community Pay It Forward podcast network, and there I let it all fly. That's
Awesome.
Angela Uncensored. So if you're easily offended, don't listen.
Perfect. Listen to it. Tell you what, we make sure you give that to me. We'll put it in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming on today, Angela.
Thank you.
I'm going to put you in the periwinkle room. We'll be right back. Say hi and say goodbye, but I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, everyone who listened and got at this point and watched. This is Angela's. She's got a great story, and you've just seen a little bit of it. But the business she's building it's helpful. It's real, powerful, because there's a bunch of need out there for it. And I have to go look at our sites now because I don't know what's successful and what's not, honestly. Thank you, everyone, for listening, watching. Get out there, go unleash your entrepreneur. And until we meet again, just go be a better version of yourself.